So here we'll be connecting a dual S surge decoder onto the existing 2-wire path, and I've pulled up about 5 feet of slack, or about 1.5 meters, up out of the valve box area, and you'll notice something a little bit different about the dual surge protectors as opposed to the dual station decoders. The station decoders have their red and blue wires to connect to the wire path, and they've got their 2 individual station outputs. You'll notice there's no grounding wire on the station decoders. The dual S surge protection modules have the 2 reds in and the red and blue wires heading out, as well as it has a grounding wire that connects to your grounding hardware. You must attach this to your grounding hardware or this decoder does nothing. If you simply install the reds and blues in the line and you don't attach this to your grounding hardware, you'll be serving no purpose. So what we'll start with is, you'll notice there's red and blue coming in and red and blue going out. We'll take the inbound wire from upstream and I'll go ahead and make the connections red to red, blue to blue, and then we'll use the other red and blue to attach to the other side to go downstream. So now that we have the dual S installed in line in the 2-wire path, you'll see we've used our DBRY connectors, and the 2 reds come in to the dual S, and then the red and blue leaves the dual S to continue on downstream. So red and blue in, red and blue out. That leaves us with our copper grounding wire. Now remember, this dual S, you don't need to program this at the controller. This contains no station information. It does nothing to do with station operation. It simply is a way with which to ground your 2-wire path to appropriate grounding hardware. We brought in here the green and yellow wire, and this attaches to our grounding plate. And the plate that we'll be using is 36 inches in length, or 1 meter, and it's buried at 30 inches deep, which is about 75 centimeters. We'll want to use the same DBRY connector to attach the copper wire from the dual S to the wire that goes to our grounding plate. So once again, we'll repeat the process, install the wire nut, and assemble the connector. Send your 2 wires out the sides and snap it shut. So once again, this is the dual S surge protection module, and you'll want to install these every 1,000 feet or 12th decoder along the 2-wire path, whichever comes first. As well, these always need to be installed at the end of every wire run. So if you have 1 straight wire run shot with your main line, it's less than 1,000 feet, simply put 1 dual S at the end of the line. If you tee off with your main and go in a different direction, the end of that run requires a dual S as well. So at the end of every wire run, as well, every 1,000 feet or 12th decoder, whichever comes first. So here we have the installation of the dual S at the end of the mainline run and the end of the 2-wire path run. You'll notice there's a red and a blue going into the dual S and a red and a blue coming out of the dual S. I've already made my wire nut connections up here, and it being the end of the line, you're not going to continue down after this dual S. So you'll end up taking both reds and attaching them to the red wire, and both blues attaching them to the blue wire, so it kind of double backs on itself. And you'll also complete these connections with the DBRY capsules. So here I've completed the connections for the dual S surge protection module for grounding, and you can see we're here at the end of the mainline run as well as the end of the 2-wire path run. So we've taken the red and blue wires and double backed them back onto the 2-wire path. This is the copper lead that attaches to our grounding hardware. You must use some type of grounding hardware. Simply inserting this copper wire into the wet mud in a valve box does not constitute grounding. This needs to be attached to either a grounding plate or a grounding rod. If the grounding plate is used, the 36-inch grounding plate is a common solution for that. It needs to be buried down at a 30-inch depth or 75 centimeters. If you're using a grounding rod, you need to install the entire 8-foot length of the rod into the soil, and it needs to be about 8 feet away from this 2-wire path on a perpendicular line to the main line. And remember, any connections that you make, any decoders, surge modules, station decoders, you always need to use a valve box to complete your work when finished.